Peace and blessings, beautiful souls. It feels so good to be back. Today we're talking about Soulmate Science, ReLOADED. I say we don't talk enough about love, intimacy, sex, relationships, marriage, communion, soulmates, especially in Western culture where, sex is seen as cheap and casual, something you can get anywhere. Well, today I'm talking about it. I am Brandi L. Bates, and you are listening to Power Podcasts, and you can find us streaming on groundlevelradio.com, here on Podomatic and SoundCloud, hashtag Power Podcasts. Many of these are in fact archived on YouTube at the I Am Brandi Bates YouTube channel. And you can also find me on Twitter at SoulMates and on Instagram at Brandi is winning. You'd be surprised. You would think, I get tired of saying that and repeating it at the beginning of every single podcast, but you'd be surprised by how many people say, you know what? I had no idea you had a podcast. Or are you on Facebook? Are you on Snapchat? What's your Snap? FYI, I am not on Snapchat. I can't do it. I refuse to do it. I can't bring myself to it. I need less screens in my life. I need less noise, not more. At what point is enough? At what point is your voice eclipsing what you can be listening to and absorbing and consuming for your benefit? So today we're talking about Soulmate Science. For many of you who have been rocking with me for the past couple of years, I've done a couple of podcast talks on relationships and sex and love and marriage, soulmates, oochie coochie, the birds and the bees, all that good stuff. Where I come from, they call it pimping, but I have done 2 other talks. The first, Soulmate Science Volume 1 and a Soulmate Science Volume 2, and love. It's a powerful thing. Love empowers us, it strengthens us, and I think we need to talk more about it. And when I say love, I'm not talking about the stereotypical Judeo-Christian definition of love, traditionally, but just whatever love means to you on an abstract level. Why does gender still play such a defining role in our society? The author of Why Love Hurts, a book entitled Why Love Hurts, the author, her name is Eva, she says that sexual attraction and beauty was always there, but today it's a highly conscious and reflected part of mate selection. Historically, sex was not a legitimate way to choose a partner. It wasn't all about sex appeal. It was about wealth and family and bloodline and business. But today, attractiveness and viewing the person as sexy often trumps values like good character or intellect. And so this profoundly changes the rules of the romantic mating market and what that market has become. So often when I'm listening to other couples, other relationships, so often what's happening is one person is bringing in these old, outdated molds and thought of what a relationship entails, what a marriage, in fact, entails. Case in point, we live in 2017. We live in a day and age of smartphones. I like to say it all the time. All this technology, you have your social media, you have your constantly streaming movies and podcasts, and the way we consume information. All this has changed now that we all, for the most part, are carrying computers around in our pockets. And if you think about that, if you were to talk to a relative or an ancestor from 100 years ago, they couldn't fathom even the concept of a computer, period, let alone carrying one in your pocket at our fingertips. Is constant. We can tweet, we can connect to other people, we can watch movies, we can watch film, we can play video games, all at our fingertips. And what are the ramifications of that? And I think it's interesting that in this day and age where all this technology is constantly being upgraded, if you will, and constantly, for instance, we always have updates to our system, the OS system, and your phone, whether you have a smartphone or an Android or Apple, whatever, you are constantly getting updates to your phone, updates to your computer system, update to your, any type of device that could be, connected. And yet, the way we see and approach love, the way we approach relationships, romance, intimacy, marriage, soulmate science, the soulmate science-ish shit, right, is so outdated, and we hold on, and it's never been upgraded. When do we upgrade our modes of, for instance, when you think of Big Mama and Pawpaw back in the day, who stayed married 1,000 years, right? They were married at 16 and they stayed married till they died, right? And a lot of times what you saw was, back then, women were not free to do much of anything besides get married, have children, bear seeds, bear children, and raise a family, raise home, take care of home, be a homemaker. And women didn't have opportunities. They couldn't vote. They couldn't buy property. We could not start businesses. The idea and the concept of that was not even realistic. It wasn't available to us. Women. I'm talking about women. So a lot of times women stayed in situations that may or may not have necessarily been ideal for them. So now women can own real estate and property and be business owners and entrepreneurs and strike out on their own. You don't need a man or a husband or male family member from your tribe to validate your worth and help you to build an empire or whatnot. So women are just, not going to always subscribe to some of those old held beliefs. But I'm about to get into some other stuff though. So why does good sex so often fade? We're talking about soulmate science, and y'all know I go there, right? Even for couples who continue to love each other as much as ever. They love each other. I love you. 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 And why does good intimacy not guarantee good sex? Contrary to popular belief. Well, the next question would be, can we want what we already have? Can we want what we have? And I'll spare my own personal belief system on that, because to each his own, right? To each his own. Do what you want to do. But when you think about the way men and women are wired and what we are exposed to, which determines a lot of what we value and don't value, I think a lot of times many of us, men and women, no matter what you identify as, want what we don't have or can't have because it seems as unobtainable. And things that are unobtainable oftentimes have more value associated with them. even if it's not necessarily more valuable or better, or, the grass is always greener on the other side. And is it? Somebody said the grass is always greener on social media. I think social media has totally fucked up the way we approach marriage and relationships, because you're always being shown someone who looks better, who's stronger, who has more money, who has a nicer car, who has a nicer home, who's doing more, who's traveling more, who has, nicer clothes, who just has a better body, ad nauseum. I could go on and on. But can we want what we have? When you have something good at home, I like to say that's your sure thing. And you never want to fuck around and mess up your sure thing for some questionable shit. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people who've thrown away their sure thing, fucking around with, some new shit. And then you try to double back and it's not always, available anymore. So why is the forbidden so erotic? Why is the forbidden so erotic? Let's talk about it. Cause see, y'all like to play dumb. Like some of this stuff is not happening. What about polyamory? Polyamorous. So many people are they're polyamorous, pansexual. Polyamory, from Greek poly, many, several. Latin, amor, love, is typically the practice of or desire for intimate relationships where individuals have more than one partner with the knowledge and consent of all partners. So it's been described as consensual, ethical, and responsible non-monogamy. For those of you who've been rocking with me and you remember the original Soulmate Science Volume 1 and Soulmate Science Volume 2, if you haven't already heard it, go back and give it a listen. They are archived on YouTube, #Power Podcasts on the I Am Brandi Bates channel. I talked about some of the things, and I touched on, polyamory and pansexuality and all these arrangements lightly, and I said I wasn't going to go there. It's too much. I can't go into it. So in this episode, I am going a little bit more in depth, because I don't want to leave it dangling out there when it's so much to be said about it, right? Polyamorous. So many people now are polyamorous. And the love experience. Also go back and listen to that. But monogamy may seem central to marriage now, but in fact, folks, polygamy was common throughout history. Polygamists. You think of, those weird ass fucking couples in Utah, right? Utah and Idaho and Nevada, and they're in Montana, and it's like 16 wives, and they're Amish, and it's just weird, right? But here's the thing. They know something we don't know, because the shit's working for them. And the problem is we like to judge people, and we don't even realize how they're living is leaps and bounds better than we are. I mean, when you really think about it, as a woman, how amazing would it be to have all this help? You have three or four kids, you got Junior and Man, and, and here's the thing. You don't have any help. You're single. You may be a single mother and you don't have any help. It's difficult. You have to work a full-time job. You have to help the kids with homework. You got to get dinner on the table. How do you do it? By yourself, and still have time for yourself, right? Well, with polygamists, you have a help. You have several help in some cases. Now, I'm not advocating anything. I'm just saying this is what the ancestors were doing. This is something that is very old, very ancient institution that we have somehow lost sight of, and now we call it evil or sinful or whatnot. But what about unconventional romantic or sexual relationships in general? Period. Right? So perhaps what we're seeing reflects a society where so many old rules about gender and sexuality are in flux. Everything is in flux. We're seeing a huge departure from the way shit used to be done. And while marriage has existed as a central element of life in nearly every global culture in recorded history, its definition has already been changed repeatedly. People, they're changing the definition of marriage and, it's one man and one woman. But historically, we see that is false. So you have to know your history, and you have to know the history of your ancestors, the customs and the ways that people did things before they got where they are today. And before legal systems and international economies, noble and ruling classes used marriages instead of treaties to create diplomatic and commercial ties. You established peaceful relationships, trading relationships, mutual obligations with others by marrying them. And Stephanie Coontz talks about this in her book, Marriage, A History. I think it's interesting to look at marriage historically, what it has looked like versus what it has become, what it looks like today. We've historically always had things like concubines and courtesans, what you call today a hoe, a slut, a thot, whatever. We've historically had these personalities, these icons, these ideas, these concepts, gigolos, right? But historically, people have taken wives or husbands to build upon the tribe. In some cultures, men took several wives so they could help each other with all the work needed to sustain the family. Again, the polygamous concept. Women in Botswana had a saying, without co-wives, a woman's work is never done. Botswana, Africa. Aboriginals arranged their marriages for children based on strategic accessibility of land, right? So the clan would have food and water wherever they traveled based on that marital union, right? Some Native American tribes highly respected two-spirit, they called them two-spirit individuals. You see this in the Polynesian cultures as well, or those who could do the work of men and women, right? Two-spirit people could be married to someone of the same sex. Since all the tasks needed to maintain the household could be performed easily, making marriage, more of a labor concern than a gender concern. And so you saw this homosexuality and this bisexuality even historically. Again, historically, this has been here. Ancient Egypt, marriage in pursuit of the super legit bloodlines, right? Kemet, rulers of Alexander the Great's splintered empire, right, used marriage as a political tool, right? Taking more than one wife in order to establish alliances with other kings. These were chess moves, right? Y'all, I'm telling y'all, marriage is deep, right? So lower classes without much wealth at stake, what do we see today? Nobody's getting married. Nobody's getting very few. It's more people that are single and ready to mingle, right? But lower classes, historically, without wealth, had a bit more freedom in choosing a mate because you're not bringing shit to the table and neither are they, right? But marriages were still mostly seen as business contracts. Business. Marriage has always been business first. And so when we bring to marriage, he don't look good, or she getting fat, or, he's whack, he ain't packing nothing, he ain't working with nothing, she broke, she a bum, all of these ideas have nothing to do with the business of marriage. That's something else. We're going to touch on that in just a second. But slaves who didn't have their own homes or land were forbidden from marriage. But marriages were still mostly business contracts. Independent single life was impossible. Historically, to be single a single mother or single father. You just out here. It was impossible then. And it's, again, history is repeating itself. It's impossible now. It's hard. Life is hard. And 2 incomes are better than 1. And 2 business empires coming together with strong families and strong clans is it makes it even more difficult for those who don't have it. And so our ancestors, the agricultural, rural, humble beginnings we all come from, was impossible with all the labor needed to plow fields and work the land and get the oxen out there and the bison and the goats and the chickens and milking the cows. And this was life. And so now we think that we're so different. And so no, we don't have the horses and the buggies and the bison and the goats and the chickens and the so forth and so on. But now we have jobs. And you have to work a job, and you have to go to school, and you got to get the kids together, and you got these hobbies and habits and things you want to do for yourself, but having this relationship sometimes comes in the middle of that. And I've said it before, especially as a single woman, it's very difficult. And that's why I've always chosen to be in a relationship, in a union, as opposed to being by yourself. Now, granted, there are some super perks that come with being single. Getting to sleep in the middle of the bed, you get to fart up the mattress, and you're not bothering nobody, right? And you pour your cereal the way you leave it. How much cereal is left in the box when you leave it? The next day is the same, right? Everything is the same. You leave the house, you come back, it's the same. Beautiful. But when you're in a relationship, you have that help, or theoretically you do. And so what I find interesting is that it's really difficult as a single woman, especially if you have children, to be out here working a full-time job, but you have to have a full-time job. And as a sidebar, a footnote, I really think it's interesting how you have the whole notion and idea of a stay-at-home wife or a stay-at-home parent, stay-at-home spouse, where at one point that was common. Now that's a luxury, to be able to stay at home and eat bonbons and watch The View and Ellen and shit and just chill. That's seen as that's a perk, that's a luxury, because so many people, they need both people working. So again, it goes back to, so as a single woman with responsibilities and obligations, and you're having to work a full-time job, and you're having to help your kids with homework, and you're having to get food on the table, and you're having to still keep your soul fed and do things that are enriching for you, right? Where do you have the time? Where do you find the time? Where do you find the time for a relationship, to squeeze somebody in there? And so anybody who doesn't seem serious, you don't even give them the time of day, because guess what? I don't have any time. And so on the one hand, our need for security, for predictability, for safety, for dependability, for reliability, for permanence, all these anchoring, grounding experiences of our lives that we call home. But we also have an equally strong need, right? Men and women, for adventure, for novelty, for mystery, for risk, for danger, for the unknown, for intrigue, right? For the unexpected, surprise. When that's gone, we gone, right? We come to one person and we basically are asking them to give us what once was an entire village used to provide. Give me belonging. Give me identity. Give me continuity. But give me transcendence and mystery and all in one, right? Give me comfort, give me edge, give me novelty, give me familiarity, give me predictability, give me surprise. But, are we able to reciprocate? You know, I can't tell you how many friends I know. Girl, he gotta be this, and this. He need to at least make X amount of money. And she don't make that. How are you requiring something of someone and you yourself are unable to obtain it? See, understand, when we come into a relationship, people think, I'm going to bring my 50% and you bring your 50% and we're going to form 100%. But it doesn't work that way. You bring what you think may be your 50%, but it might be 20%. And you know what I'm talking about. You know when you give it 100% versus you just, I'm here, right? I'm here, but I'm not fully here. And they may bring what they believe is their 50% or hell, 100%. And they may only be bringing 80%. So there you are giving 20% of the effort and they may be giving 80% of the effort, and it's not going to work because they're giving more than you're giving and you're being unrealistic. And that was point B. Is that even realistic? So now what we have are all sorts of people coming from all types of backgrounds and different socioeconomic stations in life and different emotional temperatures and appetites and ideas. And we expect to meld those two worlds into one neat, cohesive bond. And it's not happening. It's not happening. And out of that is emerging, you have your polysexual and your pansexual and your polyamory and your gender binary and non-binary and transsexual and etc., 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 right? LGBTQPRSWN, you get the gist. But when are we most drawn to our lovers? Soulmate Science. When are we most drawn to our lovers? What draws us to one person who may be totally and completely wrong for us while we ignore those who may be perfect? Perfect for you, but you're not interested. I can't tell you how many guys I know who will overlook the woman who has been your anchor, your support, your guidance, has held you down, held you up, been knowing you since day one. And you will overlook her because she may not be physically, she's not Kim K. She doesn't have the Kim K gait, the Kim K body, right? She doesn't have the right hair. She doesn't have the right style. She doesn't have the right shape, right? And so you're basing it on shit that is here today, gone tomorrow. Because beauty is fleeting, right? Beauty is fleeting. I don't care who you are. You are never going to stay in that same body. The body is constantly changing. Beauty is fleeting. And so when we've come to a point where we're drawn to people for really flimsy reasons. And sometimes you know when someone is right for you, but you ignore it because of some bullshit reasons. And sometimes somebody is so wrong for you and you know they're wrong for you, like it's going to end in disaster, and you do it anyway. Why? How are we wired to do something detrimental to our happiness? What do we do about being on two different pages? Meaning you want to get married, but he doesn't. Or you're ready to start having seeds, being fruitful and multiplying, but she's not with it. She ain't with it. And why do we see so many babies being born out of wedlock? And is this necessarily a bad thing? I don't necessarily believe it's necessarily a bad thing. I believe that in the same way that our ways of living and loving and being in relationship are in flux, so are some of the stereotypes associated with them. What about porn? Porn, right? Porn used to be something, you had to go spend some money to get a little DVD or a VHS or take it way back, a beta, right? Or you had to pay some online service to get it, and now porn is free. I always tell people, especially parents, be real with your kids, because I promise you, they are probably watching more porn than you. If they're watching porn, they're watching it often. Because see, when we were younger, we had to sneak to watch porn, right? You had to watch your parents' same porn. Come on, y'all, don't get brand new on me. I don't watch porn. How can you be a PhD and you watch porn? Damn trolls. But kids now have porn at the tip of their fingers. So I started being real with my son, and I found he was more real with me than I could ever have conceived of. Because these kids, especially if they're older than age of 12 and they have a smartphone, we want them to be safe. Take a smartphone, keep it in your backpack in case of an emergency. Guess what else they're doing on their smartphones? Pornhub. But what I like to say about porn is, what does that do for your idea? Because a lot of people use porn now as education. I say all that to say this. Porn is not education. Growing up, we had sex ed. You had sexual education. You read the little books about, my body is my own, right? But now kids are using Pornhub and the porn as education. And so they're believing that this is what real sex and intimacy and love looks like. And so he's bringing his porn star into the bedroom, and she's having her fantasies and ideas of what love making looks like, and all the textures and the outlines of it, and then we wonder why we are at an impasse, right? Or why don't we see the types of relationships we saw 30 years ago or even 15 years ago? We are no longer, now people are grandparents younger and younger and younger. I have a friend who is 35 years old, and she is a grandmother. Bona fide, real grandmother, 35. And so you're seeing younger and younger grandparents. And you're seeing grandparents don't look like what grandparents used to look like. And not only that, before, most of us, our grandparents stayed married for 100 years, right? They never divorced. I touched on that earlier for various reasons. But we're seeing more. Well, grandpa might be single, or a widow. And then what? There's so many branches that come out of that. But also infidelity in so many marriages and relationships. These affairs become like a black hole, and they trap these couples in an endless round of bitterness, revenge, and self-pity, because it's like, oh, he shit on me, I gotta shit on him. Men don't do affairs very well. A man can have an affair, but he can't deal with being cheated on. That's one of those few things that a man cannot deal with. They're not going to deal with it. And even if they do, I would question the man who's been cheated on, who goes back into that relationship like nothing ever happened, and he's going to be all good knowing, what has happened. Women tend to be a little bit more forgiving. But why is that? Why is that? And how can we achieve lasting love, old-fashioned, what they call it, old-fashioned hopeless romantic? Why does it have to be a hopeless? Why can't you be a hopeful romantic, right? But how do we achieve lasting relationships where we come to the table so different and so fragmented? And oftentimes, many of us are coming into relationships bitter and broke ourselves. We're coming into the equation already broken, at a disadvantage. And we have really looked at the fundamental reasons why people cheat. Have you really ever thought about that? Why do people cheat? Why? Because there's a reason. And I believe men and women cheat for different reasons. Oh yeah. Some, it's out of vanity, selfishness, wanting your cake and eating it too. And I've heard somebody say, what's wrong with that? If I have a cake, hell yeah, I want it. Yeah, I want to eat it and I want it. But here's the thing, the minute you eat it, you don't have it anymore, right? Desiring what they can't have. Again, once you have it, it loses value. That idea, that concept. And I always say, the way people are in some areas of life is a good example of how they're going to be approaching a relationship. When you see somebody who's been single for a very long time, you always have to question why. You have people say, I'm single by choice. I've been single for 6 years by choice. You have not. There's no way in hell. Ain't no way. Ain't no fucking way. You've been single for 6 years by choice. A lot of times, and I hate to tell you, if you're one of those people who've been single for 6 years and in your heart of hearts you really want to be in a relationship, you may not necessarily want to be married or have kids and all that good shit, but you may just want to be, companionship. Who wants to be alone? Who wants to go home and sleep in the bed, a cold bed, all by themselves every night? And have dinner by yourself, your one little dinner, your little TV tray, you're hungry, man, by yourself, right? But I would say to you, if you've been single for 6 years, number one, it's not by choice. Number two, there's something fundamentally wrong with you. Not wrong in the sense that, you're ugly or but it's probably, it's probably something you're giving off. You're giving off something that says, I really don't want to be bothered, or I don't have time, or I'm just not interested. That's a possibility. That's a possibility. And B, again, we're talking about people who you've been single for 5-6 years and you want a relationship. We're not talking about those who've been single. They don't want to be in a relationship. They could not care less about a relationship. But those who want to be, and you feel like you're giving off, you're trying, but you're not catching anything. Nothing is coming your way. I would check what I'm giving off. I would check my vibrations. I would check my attitude, the kind of words you use. Because how you identify with yourself a lot of times determines how other people see you. That's why you can see somebody who's not necessarily that physically attractive in your eyes, but they're confident and their ego is out of this world. And because of that, they draw in all types of beautiful, loving relationships and people, because that's what they are, it's emanating. And so in many ways, we don't attract necessarily what we want. We attract the level of where we are. And what we can choose from is that pool. I think also when we're living in a time when so many accomplished women, in many ways, feminism has not served us, ladies. And I know I'm going to catch flack from this, from my feminist friends. And trust me, I'm with you, sister. Fist up. But I believe that in many ways, feminism has really fucked it up for women, because now, historically, there's always been more women to men, because for the sake of continuity and children and childbearing. But there's always more women than men. And so now in situations where there may be eight women to one man, and you have so many empowered women and wonderful, and I'm all for it. I'm here for it. But the problem is sometimes it's tipping the tables in such a way where you have a lot of women who are way more accomplished than the men that they have to choose from. And so you're in a situation where, you have these women who are bringing more bacon home to fry, right? They're making more money than the men, and they have better careers, and they're making more money. And some people have a real problem with that. Good, bad, or indifferent. And some women can't respect I don't know that I could respect a man if I make more money and I earn more money and I'm bringing more to the table. It's difficult to look at you as an equal, right? And so you have all these dynamics playing on our relationships today, and it's making it very difficult for those of you who are looking for that soulmate. I also believe that what's for you is for you. It's yours. It's coming. So in other words, if you are with a woman or a man and you two are destined to believe and be together and build a family and a life together, it will happen. In spite of, no matter what comes up, you'll be together. You might be separated, divorced. If you were with someone and it didn't work out for whatever reason, and you are still deeply, madly in love with them, and you know in your heart of hearts that it wasn't over for you guys, I would say let them go and allow them to miss you. Allow them to experience life without you. And if it's meant to be, they will come back. You two will come back together. And this is just facts. This is facts. I've seen people separated by continents and years and years and come back together and ride off into the proverbial sunset, right? Love is not this neat little concept we could stick in a box and put it on a shelf and classify it. Love is one of the most profound, powerful emotions we could ever experience in life. And I cannot understand for the life of me why we try to put it in a neat little box. And anything outside of our idea of what that looks like is then wrong. And so we have people that judge those who love different from the way we love. And you really got to get with the program, because how we're choosing to love doesn't always, it's not always working for us either, in other words. So I won't be long-winded and talk your ear off. I just was touching on Soulmate Science ReLOADED 2017. If you're in a relationship, love the one you're with. Find ways to want what you already have. You know what they say, you can't be with the one you can't be with the one you love the one you're with, right? And get back the shit that you used to do in the beginning. Get back to love making. Get back to romance. Get back to sending flowers. Get back to foot rubs and back rubs. And I promise you, if you give 110%, if you're in a relationship that's grown stale, and I'm talking to those who are married, so many of you, I've talked to so many people who, they're like, I can't get him to act right, and she just want, she hard-headed or whatever. Get back to loving. Fuck the dumb shit. Come off social media. Because one thing that I have in my marriage is we don't do the social media shit. We don't post everything that we're doing. We don't post anything about our what we have. And that keeps us private, and it keeps us safe, and it keeps what we have sacred. Get your shit off Facebook. Get your shit off Instagram. Get your business out of the streets. Get back to loving one another. We will be so farther along if most people mind their damn business and stay in their lane and sweep around your own front door. Take care of home. Whether you are a man or a woman, take care of home. Take care of home. Cut for those who cut for you. If they've been loyal to you and they've been good to you, nobody is perfect. No one is perfect. So we all come with flaws and shit. But if they've been there for you, give them the dignity and respect of your loyalty. And if they agreed to some open shit, try to change your perspective and your ideas of what your relationship has to look like. Not saying change your standards, but challenge what you've been taught and told and what's really true for you. Because what you've been taught may not necessarily be advantageous to you. So Soulmate Science, thank you all for listening. Respect and honor. Have a wonderful day. Again, love the one you with. And if you're single, take care of yourself. Use this time to get your mind right, your body right. Read books, juice, do yoga, go for a run, join the gym, do all that wonderful shit because somebody is checking you out. You guys, it's been real. Peace.